This story is about Tom, a high school student who just moved to his new school. To Tom, it was always an embarrassment for him as his family was poor compared to that of his friends. Not wanting to be ridiculed, he tried to buy many things to impress his classmates. Tom always tried to hide his family's poverty from his friends. He lied to them about it and often showed off his school smartphone to his classmates. But above all, everything that he did was to impress a girl in his class, someone that he had a crush on. And the girl came from a wealthy family. She always got the latest, coolest smartphones, which amazed everyone. And that made Tom feel bad about himself, as he always wanted himself to be better than others, so that would make her pay attention to him. As soon as he got home, Tom immediately went to find his mother in order to tell her to buy him a new phone. His family wasn't wealthy at all. Mrs. Young, his mother, was just a cobbler who barely made ends meet. As soon as he heard his mother couldn't afford a new phone for him, Tom immediately expressed his displeasure. Miss Young said that she had bought him a smartphone just 3 months before, so it would be a waste of money to get another one at that moment. Tom felt like his mom was a miser for saying that to him. At that moment, Tom was just thinking about himself, not caring how rough it was for his mom not to make any money. Then he became angry, constantly kicked at tables and to express his anger. Not only acting inappropriate to his mother, he also held at her, threatened that he wouldn't go to school if she didn't get him a new phone. Miss John was badly hurt by what her son said to her. It wasn't that she didn't want to buy another phone for him. It was just the fact that she couldn't manage enough money to do that hurted her feelings. The next morning, Tom just sat quietly in class in order to avoid the attention of his friends. But then, one of the girls in his class asked him whether he had a new phone to play games with her or not. It was a phone that went viral at that time, so in order to play new games with friends, one must have a phone with latest version of operating systems. Despite feeling happy that his friends asked him to play games with him, he thought to himself that he must quickly get a new phone in order not to be embarrassed. Then, Tom came up with an idea that would make his mother buy him a new phone immediately, and it was to threaten her that he would leave home if she didn't get a new one for him. Miss Young was still at home working tirelessly. As soon as Tom got home, he yelled and acted angrily to his mom. Miss Young said that she had a gift for him, and then handed it to her son. It was the smartphone that Tom always wanted his mom to buy for him. He became extremely excited as soon as he saw it, yet didn't even bother to say anything to her. Seeing Tom just care about the new phone, Miss Young was deeply upset. A few days later, as Tom went to school, he saw his friends rocking another cool gadget. It was the newly released B watch, which was really expensive. And again he asked Miss Young to buy him that watch. Fearing that her son would become angry like the last time, she agreed to buy it for him. That night, there were sudden noises that came out of nowhere. Inside his room, Tom was still sleeping peacefully, even smiled happily as if he was having a beautiful dream. The noises were loudly that interrupted his sleep and awoke him. Tom quietly walked to the room's door to check what was happening. Outside his room, the lights were still on, and in front of his eyes was Miss Young working tirelessly by her sewing cabinet. From time to time, Miss Young had shivered, as if she was very cold. Also, her appearance looked pretty strange. On the sewing table, Miss Young tried to vomit those creatures with creepy shapes that slowly crawled out of her throat. The creatures looked like goblins with extremely white bodies and red eyes. The goblins kept running around, then they looked at the image of the watch displayed on the phone. They carefully observed the shape of the watch. then memorized it as it would be easy for them to make her wish come true. The goblins looked excited. They discussed with each other on how to make a watch like that for Miss Young. And then they started to make one. Tom curiously watched them, also wondered what else they could make. And then the magical scene happened which truly surprised Tom. In just a short amount of time, the small goblins had made a watch that looked exactly like the one that was being sold at an extremely high price. Tom had found out a huge secret of his mother. It was the goblins that made everything. With the awesome tech gadget that he just had, Tom quickly showed it to his friends and they were amazed. Tom slowly became more arrogant and demanded more from his mother. Since the day he found out about the goblins, Tom had required his mom to buy him other expensive items, ignoring her trying to talk him out of doing it. And with the stylish stuff he had, he eventually made the girl he had a crush on fall in love with him. At that moment, Tom was thinking to himself that with those little goblins, he would never feel embarrassed while being with his friends. After a date with his girlfriend, Tom slowly went home. While walking on the way to home, he was muttering, "My house looked so ugly and terrible. How could I live in a house like that? Got to make the goblins build a new one." As he was about to open the door, he heard someone calling him. From afar, Tom saw a familiar figure. It was one of his classmates named Kudo. The boy looked at Tom, then immediately got excited as he just found out a secret of Tom. Kudo walked to Tom and then laughed at him, saying excitedly, "Ha ha ha! Oh, my good friend, Tom! How could a rich kid like you live in such an awful house?" Tom quickly changed his expression. He became worried, even scared. He told Kudo that it was just a house of his acquaintance. But Kudo didn't buy it. He slowly approached Tom and then spoke in a sarcastic manner. "You are such a liar. You think I'm gonna believe you? I've been watching you for a long time." At that moment, Tom felt like his whole body was being heated. He was reeling with the fact that the secret the cover-up was about to be exposed. But no matter what Tom tried to say, Kudo would not believe his words, since he had been watching Tom for a long time, so he knew what to believe. Kudo took out his phone and then recorded everything. And then he left. He also had an intention of showing this for the whole school to know. And of course, Tom knew about it. He didn't want his secret to be exposed. He couldn't accept to lose all of the admiration that his classmates had for him, and especially the love from his girlfriend. If everything was exposed, then there would be nothing left for him, and his girlfriend would definitely look down on him and leave him. It was something that Tom would never accept. Then, without saying anything, Tom secretly followed Kudo, and then hit him in the head with a shovel in his hand. The blood on the shovel dropped on the ground. Kudo was dead. Now Tom fully realized what he had done. And then, due to being too scared, Tom ran home and told his mom about the incident. Standing in front of Miss Young, he was scared and regretful. Seeing Tom cry, Miss Young couldn't help but be worried. She asked him what had happened. Tom burst out crying, saying it wasn't his fault that Kudo died. He also justified that it was just an accident, and Miss Young had to help him hide the body at all costs. Seeing Miss Young not saying anything, he said, "Didn't you have those small goblins? Tell them to help me with this." Miss Young looked at her son with great pain in her heart, but with the love she had for him, she was willing to do anything for him. She suddenly came up with an idea that could help her son get away with it. Eventually, she agreed to call out the goblins to help him. Miss Young slowly brought out the box that contained the magical eggs and showed it to Tom. She slowly picked out one of them and put it in her mouth. The white small goblins hatched out from the egg and crawled out of Miss Young's mouth. They excitedly sat down, waited for an order from Miss Young. To them, the one that raised them and made them hatch was their owner. But what Miss Young told the goblins shocked Tom. He didn't expect Miss Young would do it for him. The last thing that she could do for Tom was to make all of the evidence that accused Tom of murdering Kudo against her. The goblins finished the work that they were required to do as tears kept rolling on her cheeks. This would be the last thing that she could do for her son. And now Tom had finally got away with his murder and didn't have to take responsibility for his crime. The last thing Miss Young could do was take the prison sentence for her son. Suddenly Tom remembered the eggs that his mom left him. Knowing the magical power that the eggs possessed, Tom came up with a plan to make a fortune for him. His eyes were filled with joy as he saw the magical eggs on the table. He quickly put one of the eggs into his mouth. When the egg reached its stomach, Tom felt an unbearable pain and was extremely uncomfortable. Then, he felt like his entire mouth was being torn apart by something very big that slowly crawled out of his mouth. Tom immediately vomited an egg that was 4 times as big as the one he previously put into his mouth. He couldn't help but wonder why this mom picked out the small goblins, but when it came to him, it was a big egg. Then, the egg hatched. The creatures inside eventually came out. But this time, the shape of those creatures was so terrifying that it made him speechless. The creatures looked exactly like demons, so fierce and cruel. Seeing the creatures, Tom wondered to himself, how could it be like this? Why aren't they white like the goblins from my mom? Although they looked nothing like the small white goblins, Tom still believed that the creatures would help him and made his dream come true. Although they looked nothing like the small white goblins, Tom still believed that the creatures would help him and made his dream come true. Ignoring the creatures' ugly look, Tom quickly ordered them to find him diamonds as much as possible. However, the creatures started to scream demonically. Tom started to feel worried. He yelled at it, demanded it to carry out his order immediately. Suddenly they started to move, yet it looked like they were marching. They looked at him and then slowly approached him. Tom was surprised, not knowing what they were intending to do next. Suddenly, the monsters let out demonic screams. Then they showed their creepy sharp teeth and rushed to Tom. Still being confused and not knowing how to respond, Tom immediately got attacked, bitten, and had his blood sucked by the monsters. The fierce scream echoed all over the house. Outside, a strange girl sighed deeply and walked away. Tom's wish had finally come true. The diamonds were eventually made, sparkling on the ground. However, Tom had to die, and no matter how many diamonds he had, he could never use them, because everything comes with a price. The creatures will treat their owner the way their owner treats others. Miss Young was a good person, so she created the goblins, contrary to Tom. A young boy with an evil character could only create the evil itself. This story is about a high school girl named Mariko. Mariko was only 15 when she developed depression and often fainted in class. The situation of Mariko worried the homeroom teacher as it badly affected her studies and her health. The doctor who diagnosed the girl realized she's been suffering from autism from an early age. If it wasn't treated effectively, it could easily turn into schizophrenia. Mariko's mother passed away, which made her suffer psychological shock, even though her father was a comedian who always brought joy to the others. The doctor suggested to the teacher to create a positive, cheerful environment for the girl, as it would help her recover quicker from the treatment with her pharmaceuticals. Later, Mr. Shiro, Mariko's dad, showed up and brought the girl home. He was friendly and cheerful to everyone he met. As the father and his daughter left, the female teacher felt something wasn't right. She was really worried about Mariko. But the doctor thought differently. He believed that with the humor, charm, and experience of a comedian, Shiro could help his daughter get over her depression and be happier. However, Mr. Shiro was always busy. He rarely had time for his children, so the issues that Mariko caused would affect him and tire him out. Mr. Shiro was frustrated as he saw the sorrowful expression and slow demeanor of his daughter. He struggled to hide his disappointment as he held at her, urging her to go home quickly. Mariko, feeling upset, quietly followed her dad home. It's like every step she took, she was carrying a huge stone on her shoulder. Since losing her mother at birth, growing up with her father caring about her while everyone acted coldly towards her, Mariko slowly became quiet and just wanted to be alone. One day, while walking outside, someone tapped her on the shoulder. She heard a sweet, clear voice from behind. A woman from the X organization looked at Mariko and gave her a present. Its name was the Laughing Pig. It could absorb someone's sorrow, turn it into positive energy, and release it to others. The more sorrowful the person hugging it was, the more positive energy got released. Mariko received the present from the woman. Could this big toy help her to live a happy life? Mariko was doubting it. The next day, the atmosphere inside the classroom was no longer quiet. The laughter from the students made everything seem cheerful and noisy. A friend of Mariko who sat next to her was delighted as she saw Mariko too being cheerful and radiant. The two kept talking to each other. It had been a long time since she saw a smile on Mariko's face, but something was odd, like the smile didn't come naturally. Mariko was also always holding something under the table. It turned out that Mariko was keeping the laughing pig under her desk. Every time she felt sad, she would hug the pig so it could absorb her sadness and transform it into positive energy, then released it to everyone so they could feel happy too. Thanks to the pig, Mariko's life gradually became more cheerful. People started to embrace her and talk to her. After school, Mariko was accompanied to the theater by her dad, which was also her father's new workplace. Mariko was standing from afar waiting for her father as he was in conversation with another man. She overheard the man comment, "I didn't expect a comedian like you to have a daughter with autism," as her father replied to the man that he experienced it as extremely tough on him. The two had no idea that Mariko was behind them all the time and were dumbfounded by her appearance. And Mariko was no longer happy and excited because the words of her father cut deep. She was wondering how her dad could say such a thing about her. After Mariko's sudden appearance, the two men were surprised. Suddenly, the laughing pig she was holding emitted a pink smoke that instantly filled the space. Those who accidentally inhaled started to laugh uncontrollably, even though there was nothing worth laughing about. They couldn't stop laughing. Mariko's heart started healing. The smoke was actually the pain that Mariko had to go through. The more people laughed, the greater the pain was that she had experienced. That night, as soon as they arrived home, Mr. Shiro immediately rushed to his daughter's room, asking about the laughing pig. In order to have the pig, he poured honey into Mariko's ear, saying, "Give that pig to me and I will get you another toy." But Mariko insisted on not giving it to him, as the pig was the most valuable thing that she's ever had. Seeing his daughter as stubborn, resisting his question, he got furious and scolded her. Eventually, he took the pig from her and kept it for himself, but Mariko hadn't told him anything about the instructions. 2 days later, he had a comedy show. Mr. Shiro didn't forget to bring the pig with him as he held it in his arms during his entire performance. Knowing that he wasn't a good comedian, his show didn't always go the way he wanted it to, and the audience weren't so much into his performances, so he took advantage of the pig to try and get laughs from them. However, as he finished his routine, the audience was still quiet and seemed unimpressed, as some even discouraged his acting. The theater manager silently observed Mr. Shearer's performance. Looking at the frustrated and disappointed face of the manager, Mr. Shearer felt worried, because if the situation was to continue like that, his contract to perform at the theater would definitely get terminated. At the same time, due to not having the laughing pig with her, Mariko became depressed, just like before, sad and moody day by day. Moreover, she became moody and depressed. Her friends struggled to handle her. For this reason, she didn't want to talk to Mariko anymore. As her closest friend ignored her, Mariko became even more depressed. Even the homeroom teacher scolded her for her bad results at school. Then the teacher walked away, leaving Mariko with a great pain in her heart. And again, the demon inside her head appeared, stuffing her mind with negative thoughts that everyone hated her and she was loved by no one. And therefore, she had to accept the truth that she was nobody, and her existence in this world meant nothing to them. Those negative thoughts was painful to her. Mariko felt as if her heart was being squeezed and was drowned into a sea of awful thoughts. As she got back to reality, Mariko felt like her heart had already stopped beating. She locked herself in the room. Suddenly, she remembered that her dad was having a stand-up comedy at the theater. She wanted to get there to take back the laughing pig. As she arrived at the theater, she heard some people commenting on her performance. They criticized her dad's performance and said it was a waste of their time and their money. Mariko looked away, thinking perhaps her dad didn't know how to use the laughing pig. Mariko quickly got on stage. From the wings, she observed what was going on there. It looked like her dad was being scolded and insulted, but he couldn't do nothing but silently tolerate it. What he feared the most had finally happened to him. His next performances couldn't attract anyone to the theater, and they weren't funny either. Fearing that he would get fired, he begged the director to give him another chance, also used Mariko as a reason for the director to feel sympathetic towards him. Mariko was heartbroken when she saw what happened to her dad. She didn't want her dad to lose his job, so she wanted to do something for him. That night, Mariko came to see him and taught him how to use the pig. She was the only one that could help him. Despite feeling uncomfortable, she didn't want to see her dad being sad and heartbroken as he lost his job. Mariko instructed him about the use of the pig. The laughing pig could only be used by people with autism like her. Mr. Shiro was so happy that he forgot about the pain of his daughter, as he only cared about what she was going to do for him, what she would do that could be beneficial to his career. As Mariko expressed her thoughts and feelings to her dad, she expected that she would get some comfort from her dad. However, her dad completely ignored her. Her heart was shattered. The demon in her heart once again whispered to her that she would never be loved by her dad, and money was the only thing that mattered to him. 3 days later, Mr. Shiro performed again, this time with the help of the laughing pig. He begged the director to give him another chance so he could bring out his best capability. From the wing, Mariko started to hug the pig tightly so it could transform her pain into positive energy. After a while, the pink smoke slowly began all over the place, and the people watching the show breathed it in. The whole theater became noisy with laughter. Never had it been so boisterous and cheerful like that. Even Mr. Shiro laughed creepily. As the performance finished, the director couldn't stop praising Mr. Shiro's talent. Being happy, Mr. Shiro patted Mariko's head, and that delighted her a lot. the director offered Mr. Shiro to perform at the theater again in 2 days. Since that day, Mariko became much happier. The atmosphere around her was filled with laughter and happiness. Mr. Shiro's next performance finally happened, but since Mariko's mood in the past few days had been much happier, the negative energy that the laughing pig could transform also became less. When the performance finished, the pink smoke that emitted by the pig was weak and little. As the audiences didn't inhale much of the smoke, the whole stage was quiet. They wasn't into the performance of Mr. Shiro. Seeing the scene in front of him, he was furious, wondering what had happened to the pig. He immediately went to the wing of the stage and asked Mariko what had happened. At that moment, Mariko was upset that she couldn't do anything to help him. She explained to him that it was because of her being less sad and depressed. So the negative energy wasn't enough for the pig to transform, and that was the reason why the smoke couldn't billow the theater. Mariko apologized to him, told him that next time she would keep the negative energy within her so the pig could transform him. As Mariko was trying to explain to him, he trembled with anger and clenched his fist. Eventually, as he couldn't hold in his anger any longer, he slapped Mariko hard in the face. The slap was so hard that it made Mariko fall onto the stage. Mariko was in pain and she was very much hurt. Suddenly she heard people laughing down the stage and it made Mariko felt extremely painful. Since the performance was already finished, it was her that made them laugh, not the show. They all looked at her and laughed mockingly. Mariko knew that she wasn't holding the pig, which meant that they actually laughed at her for the way she fell onto the ground. The pain in her heart became so strong that it made her hate everything. She tried to get up, and at that moment she realized that everything was against her. The demon inside her head whispered to her and laughed demonically, as it had finally achieved its purpose. The level of Mariko's depression had reached its climax. Once again she was being drowned in a sea of negative thoughts, yet she no longer wanted to get out of it. Mariko unconsciously took the pig as if she wanted to have one last dose of medicine to comfort her soul. However, she didn't realize how great her pain had become. It was way beyond its limit. As the power was released from the pig, Mariko started to become crazy. It seemed like everything had been too much for her. Everyone in the theater that day had died in a terrible way. They all laughed themselves to death. And it was also a case that caught the attention of public media and the police. Both Mr. Shiro and Mariko had disappeared without leaving a trace. The rumors about the ghosts of those who died at the theater that day and the girl with the laughing pig had been spread all over the city. Mariko had become a laughing demon. She would never be sad again, and wherever there was pain, she and the laughing pig would appear.